jump to a conclusion that requires a leap of logic, a leap of faith, or an intervention of the supernatural. Clearly, there's no way you could have mud in vast quantities moving across vast distances. It doesn't make sense. You would have to already be there. The commenter says, I don't understand how a mud flood can kill everyone but leave the buildings intact. Because gravity. They're inferring a whole lot from photos. We're just going to sink. And the only buildings that don't sink are the ones that have the foundations built down low enough, built before the last mud flood, maybe even several recent before, inferring a whole lot from photos.
Okay, this is Mud Flood. One-Eyed Jack and the Shells. I'll put a link to the track below. It says Infinite Plane Society Evening Deprogram for September the 2nd, 2024. A lot of new and interesting, valuable information. And we'll pick up on some of the things we missed yesterday. But there's some Rosie O'Donnell news that I want to get to first. So Rosie O'Donnell has come out suggesting that Trump wasn't shot. Yep, she's kind of veering into auto hoaxer territory. This is from Tim Runs His Mouth, from TMZ. Rosie O'Donnell spreads conspiracy Trump was not hit by a bullet. She said there's something hinky about it. I would describe that as hinky, if hinky means fake AF. O'Donnell said, I don't know what happened, and this is her revenge. You remember, back when Trump was competing with 15 other Republicans to be the nominee, he had a debate, and Megyn Kelly was the moderator, and she said something about, hey, Donald Trump, didn't you just say that all women are pigs? And his response famously was only Rosie O'Donnell. So I think this might be her revenge. She says, I don't know what happened that day, but I don't think it was a bullet that hit him. I don't think, maybe it was a fragment, I don't know. Without a scar or yet to be seen any blood, O'Donnell raises her suspicions about the iconic photo of Trump with his fist in the air. Look at the photos of him right after with his fist pumping. A normal reaction, right, to almost being assassinated? There's something hinky about the whole thing. So I agree, it's hinky. The moon landings were hinky. 9/11 was hinky. You know what? Hook is hinky. She says, look at the photos of him. There's something hinky. I don't know what it is, but I'm saying this. For people who go on conspiracy theories for endless cycles, deep dives, how come this isn't getting a deep dive? How come people are just like, look, his ear's normal now? You know, a number of people have raised this question. Like, how did this story just die? And how come nobody's talking about his ear? And what she says here is, he's not an octopus. He doesn't regrow his limbs, his ears, his nose, or whatever. We don't regrow. We are humans. So let's go ahead and play this clip. This is Rosie O'Donnell being an auto hoaxer.
Now, I don't know what happened that day, but I don't think it was a bullet that hit him. I don't. I think it was maybe a fragment of something, but I don't know. Without a scar to be seen, yet blood all over it. Look at the photos of him right after with his fist pumping. A normal reaction, right? To almost being assassinated. There's something really hinky about the whole thing. And I don't know what it is, but I am saying this. For people who go on conspiracy theories for endless cycles, Deep dives. How come this isn't getting a deep dive? How come people are just like, look, his ear is normal?
We're giving it a deep dive. We have been for weeks. Rosie O'Donnell needs to retweet the Infinite Plane Radio Archive from 7/13, 7/14, where we talked about this, with the presupposition that, yeah, it's fake because we knew it was coming, because we've been examining predictive programming up to that day even, and the night before saying, Trump's head wound is coming. Like we knew. We weren't surprised.
Normal now. Yeah.
But what she's pointing out here is that all of the big mouth conspiracy theorists, and you know who they are, the establishment friendly ones, their whole thing is, oh, there's a second shooter. There's a second shooter on the water tower. This was an inside job. Like they have no imagination, or they're actively trying to protect the psyop.
Wait, he's not an octopus. He doesn't regrow his limbs, his ears, his nose, or whatever. You don't regrow. We're humans. You don't regrow your arms.
Now, some of the, like Tim Young is the guy with 1 million followers. He's a comedian, host, speaker, and author. Tim Young's response to this was, Rosie O'Donnell spreads the theory he wasn't shot. Can we sue her for $1 billion like they did to Alex Jones? Now, this is an interesting question because they believe it. And this is one of the primary points that I've been making, is that alt media is skeptical of mainstream. Mainstream is skeptical of alt. But together, neither of them are really skeptical enough to see the big picture. And she's walking in that direction. Because if Trump wasn't shot, then the fireman wasn't shot. Then the people behind him are very questionable. The Secret Service would have been in on it. Yeah, it's an inside job, but it's an inside hoax. It's an inside magic trick. It would mean that the entire performance of it, the staging of the photos, the Secret Service agents looking inept, that was meant to lead into this anti-DEI sentiment, all staged. But then if it's all staged, then we have to talk about media complicity. And this would envelop left-wing as well as right. So there's no way she can go that far. I would imagine that she's boxed in, that she doesn't know and isn't in the know about how fake things can be. And this is what I like to point out too, is that many of the entertainers who are programmers, who may even be carriers of predictive programming messaging, are genuinely clueless and just as programmed as the normies. They're only let in on things on a need-to-know basis. So she's genuinely ignorant about the scale of the fakery, and there's no way, I don't believe, there's any way that she could possibly go that far. And this next one I don't think is a thing, but Synchromorpheus noted this one. We were talking about MAGA rappers yesterday, and the rapper that has the golden Trump around his neck and the 47 on his head, that's going to have to turn into a 48 if Kamala Harris takes over before the inauguration, if something happens to Biden. But anyway, he put forth this idea that maybe Rosie O'Donnell could be deep faking as a MAGA rapper, as some deep troll. And this again would be consistent with the idea that maybe she wants revenge for Trump calling her a pig. And if you look at the teeth, Rosie O'Donnell, fellatio blow. I think that Rosie O'Donnell might be deep faking as a MAGA rapper. Is she that good of an actress? I mean, this is the guy who drives around with the Donald Trump, like, inflatable doll, like, in his car, like in the passenger side. It's insane. All right, let's see who is here. Diana South from D-Live, P. Trippa, Matt X, Sean Diaz, Observing Reality, Frank Murr, Ears Up, Let's Go, AJ206, Armin Reed, Metro 101. Reverse History says happy. Yeah, it's a new moon. It's the moon in Virgo. Evolvement. Matt X says, lucky I'm off work for a week so I can make these streams. I wish they were earlier. I would like to make them earlier. And I'm going to be spending more time in the office, so it's likely they will be earlier coming up. King Ravana, LAC, Ted Stryker, Elephant Tusk says we can start now. Violet Pengon. Esteban, long live IPS and company. Thank you. Thank you, Sean Diaz, for that super chat. Joined by Flozik. Etheric Bliss says Hinky. Yeah, we'll put Hinky into the nomenclature, into the auto hoax lexicon. I have time to add it before I put the insider into print. I was sending it to the printers today, but they sent it back, so I have to take a lot of these images and fix them. Not a big deal. Elephant Tusk says IPS needs a public relations agency. Our public relations will be, I think, more or less organic. Like, this is going to spread like a pestilence. We're talking about auto-hoaxing, skepticism as a mind virus. When really, it's like antivirus software, if you think about it. Auto-hoaxing is the antivirus software you need for the mind viruses implanted by the mass media to a public who have been purposefully infected with mind aids by the government. And that's not a conspiracy theory. Joined by Lean Dion, Mango Penguins, Ollie Goering. Looks like we have a full raft. Already 75 people have piled in here. Thirst for Truth. Dwayne Aubith. Dirk Zink says, I watched the whole thing. It was all staged. However, Rosie is a nut bar and low IQ. Wasn't she on The View? And at one point, all of those harpies loved Donald Trump. And then one day, just they flipped a switch. Trump deranged. Like they got injected with something. Or they got the memo. Because likely it's all theater. I look at someone like Robert De Niro, or Alec Baldwin, or Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, or Stephen King. All of these individuals are noted for their Trump derangement. But I think it's all an act. And if you look back, they're all well represented in the body of anti-Trump predictive programming. So just to kind of refresh your memory here with the Robert De Niro thing. When he made a show of his derangement in front of the courthouse, he wasn't just Robert De Niro as a screaming liberal making a scene. He was bringing into the picture a number of his previous roles that specifically tied to the Trump headshot, which hadn't happened yet at the time that we were talking about this. From the Joker movie where he shot, Joker being based on his character Travis Bickle from The Taxi Driver, which was the basis for Joker, and the Taxi Driver inspiring real-life shooter John Hinckley. So that you can look back at his role in Machete 2010, where he plays the xenophobic senator who gets shot as he's giving a xenophobic speech, just as Trump was. So what you're saying here is some of these actors were presenting this negative archetype that we're supposed to hate. They were putting this out there years in advance. And I would imagine at some level that they're aware that they're doing government propaganda, not just entertainment. But clearly, Rosie's not in the know, because you're not supposed to call out the other side's psyops. The left wing never says, oh, these Allah Akbar Islamic terrorists blowing up things all seem like they're staged events. They never say that. They'll just blame it on something else. Whereas the right wing will reflexively say, well, this shooting is questionable. But they'll question their narrative. They won't question the basic facts of it, though. Like they'll change the blame. Like when it comes to shootings, you'll notice they'll blame antidepressants from the right wing. The left wing will blame gun culture. But the point is, neither side will undermine the fundamental reality. They won't say it didn't happen. So the accepted conspiracy theory with Trump getting shot is that it was a second shooter, or it was an inside job. But to call it hinky, that's something that you wouldn't do if you were in the know about psyops. So Rosie O'Donnell is not psyop aware. Matt X says turkey teeth all look the same. You're talking to turkeys don't have teeth, so I'm not sure what that means, but if it means the way that their teeth look, yeah, they look like if Rosie O'Donnell put on a neck beard and a MAGA hat and rapped badly, she could probably pull off a fellatio blow. Joined by Tunax, Lord Dorkington, Clockwork 113. Lane Dion says, Rogan recently called out people calling the Trump thing fake. He mentioned how some have said, quote, he may have cut his ear with a razor. The only ones I've heard mentioning blading is here. Yeah, okay, I'll get that clip. Now, the only people who've mentioned blading have been, well, Jake the A-hole, and we've mentioned it. But, yeah, it's a very limited number of people are calling it out as blading. But if you remember, at the RNC, when Hulk Hogan was having this spontaneous recollection of Hulkamania, where his face is bleeding and he looks down and he sees Trump, and then he goes on to win. Yeah, that wasn't just some random recollection. That was a direct allusion to what Trump just did. Because he was comparing these events. I'm looking up at Trump, and his face is bleeding. He's looking down at me, just like I was to him back in the Hulkamania event. Well, obviously, Hulk Hogan cut himself with a razor. So he was kind of implying, I think, from one World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Famer to another, that, yeah, we both did the same psyop or hoax or special effect. And that's when Trump gave Hogan the kissy face. I was like, why is he blowing kisses at Hulk Hogan? Yeah, I think something transpired. Okay, I'm going to look here in the Gilded. So Joe Rogan got mad about somebody auto-hoaxing. I'll keep an eye out for that. Joe Rogan obviously gatekeeping it. A Newful says, you should do a collab with John True. Send me a link. Dirk says, I like logic and common sense. It's very uncommon. That's what I mean. When I say the public was injected with mind aids by the government, what I mean is the government purposefully ensured that through the indoctrination, through conditioning, that the general public would be programmable, that they wouldn't apply logic when it comes to certain things. So, for example, the nightly news, or what you're being told from the scientific establishment. Like, you're told to just have a certain level of faith in media. And I don't. I have no faith in media. And I believe that some people are, in their minds, honest and they're telling the truth, but they're standing upon an edifice of lies, and you're a liar by default. And we need to get more comfortable saying that word, liar. Like, if you're running around saying, oh yeah, people died in Vegas on 10/1/2017, well, you are bearing false witness and you're pretty much a liar. You're basically a crisis actor. So what's your excuse? And we need to ask people, what is your justification for telling a lie? And if they say, well, this is the consensus belief. Well, having a consensus-friendly belief doesn't give you the moral high ground anymore. Now that we know that the consensus worldview is a manufactured and highly tampered with false representation built upon a presupposition of certain weapons of mass destruction being eminently a threat to us at all times. The entire worldview is built upon this idea of scarcity, among other things. So if you're on the side of the big programmers and the fear-based mind war, you're on the wrong side, morally speaking. And intellectually, can you say you have the intellectual high ground because you believe the news over some conspiracy theorist? No, not anymore. Not if you're comparing your perspective to that of a skeptic. Because the difference is, most conspiracy theorists, like in Alex Jonestown, drinking the Kool-Aid and stuff, yeah, you could say that they are perhaps just believers in something alternative, and they have a knee-jerk reaction to anything mainstream and just call it fake, and it doesn't mean the same thing. What we're proponents of here is informed non-belief, informed disbelief. We know why we don't believe it. And if you contrast that with the average news believer, they believe what they see because they saw it on the screen. So compare, I believe it because I saw it on TV, to I don't believe it because of A through Z, and I provide reasons. So we have reason on our side, and they have faith. And I'm suggesting here that if we approach the church of mainstream media as though we were atheists debunking their God constructs, they will have no defense against it. Because ultimately, they are arguing on behalf of God constructs and the ultimate authority, the divine authority of the screen. People of the screen. Mango says deprogramming should be added to the dictionary. Yes, because we're all programmed by default. And the deprogramming has to happen at the level of the individual. And most people who would attempt deprogramming are led down rabbit trails. They're led into a different paradigm, an alternate cave with alternate shadows on the wall. And what we're advocating here is deprogramming, not alternative programming. Now, the programmers are the ones that are propagators of the world view. And these can be news, media, it can be actors, it can be politicians, whoever happens to be in the spotlight at the time. The programming class, it's an amalgamation. I call it the game programmers. Government, academia, media, entertainment. And if you look at it from the big picture and you cease to think of entertainment and news as separate, it all makes sense. And predictive programming is one of the fundamental things to understand, that predictive programming is not the result of eerie coincidences, nor is it the result of a higher power. These are the misdirections, the misdirection that have, like mainstreamers will say, oh, these are eerie coincidences. Well, that misdirects you into this realm of becoming a coincidence theorist, or just ignoring patterns. But the alternative minds are told, oh, it's not a coincidence. It's a synchronicity, and it must emanate from a higher power. So both of them are wrong. One is ignorant, one has been mystified. So what we're doing, what we have done, is we have demystified predictive programming, and what we've revealed here, what we've come to understand, is that they are using entertainment media in all platforms, video games, books, movies, comics, children's cartoons, to prepare the collective psyche and the individual for the fake news events of the future, sometimes very near future. These things are often concurrent, so that you are already conditioned and programmed to accept whatever they present as real. And this gives them a great deal of flexibility because they can introduce things into the realm of possibility that don't even exist. So you can look at it as an advanced form of propaganda and advertising. And note how often we reference Netflix in this, because they're such a huge player. And it's worth remembering that the first CEO and co-founder of Netflix is a blood relative of Edward Bernays, propaganda, and Sigmund Freud. So they know how to go beneath the hood into your subconscious and change your views on anything through the science of public relations, PR stunts. PSYOPs are PR stunts. They're not false flags. Blank Hook was never a false flag. It was always a PR stunt. Nobody dies at PR stunts. Truthers are always hung up on, it was a false flag, some people died. No, it was not a false flag. It's a PR stunt. But you have alt media chanting false flag to embed it in your head that these things are all real, but somebody else did it. No, it's not a false flag. It's a PR stunt. The Trump shooting, July 13th, that was a PR stunt and a magic trick. A little slide of, that's all it was. It was a magic trick, but a public relations stunt. Let's Go says, yes, IPS with James True would be super interesting and epic. I think I retweeted him recently where he said something about how Alec Baldwin and Donald Trump both would have benefited if their events were staged. That he could see, he said that both of their shootings had some great propaganda and promotion value for each one of them. I don't know if he knows how right he is. Okay, continuing. Oh, okay, Matt X says, people go to the country turkey for their cheap fake teeth. Okay, that's what you meant. You're talking about Rosie O'Donnell and Horatio Blow having turkey teeth. I thought, what did he mean? I mean, turkeys don't have... Esteban says, that is a super punchable mouth. Oh, yeah. Horatio Blow and some of these other MAGA rappers are parodies. I think they're CIA. It's kind of it's a gig. Like I noticed this trend happen like all at once. Any sort of conspiracy genre would have this like explosion of like rappers representing it. Like all of a sudden, they just got the memo. You got to rap about it because this is how the CIA says this is how you reach the youth. You can kind of tell he's a plant. He claims, and this is how they try to get promotion, he claims he's being censored. I share my work, they're censoring me. This is what they all do. A lot of truther channels will claim that they're being censored, but they're just really playing the victim, and it's a marketing strategy. And that's why I don't like to. It's the scarcity model. You better listen now, better subscribe now, because we might disappear tomorrow. Like, no, I'm here for the next 30 years. And it's possible to run something like this off an iPhone. Like, there's no way there's not going to be infinite plane radio. Unless I get shot. It's amazing how many people have been shot on streets that I frequent. Like, I was just in the foothills today, and if you do a search, Albuquerque foothills, it's like, yeah, 4 people shot at a car wash. A whale of a car wash or something. Like, what's going on? This is a whale of a crime wave. Just pull these headlines up. Yeah, 4 dead, murder, suicide. And then there was 4 dead in an apartment parking lot. They were shot. And then there was some guy on a bike in a mask who shot some lady on the street I know. And I saw a guy on a bike with a mask leaving a Whole Foods. So I was kind of eyeing, kind of looking at him sideways. Here we go. Multiple injured, one seriously after shooting in the foothills. Because I was just saying, well, as long as you stay on that side of town, you're cool. Well, that's no longer the case. Triple shooting in foothills. This was 2 hours ago. Leaves one clinging to life. Anyway, that's right next to my Filiberto's Mexican food. Anyway, it's a mess. It's Breaking Bad over here for some reason. And I think the FBI were involved in one of these, and I caught some rumors on Reddit of cartels. But this is also Sanctuary City. It's an election year, and so I wouldn't be surprised if... I mean, I'm not saying these are fake, but when it comes to any of these things, fake until proven real includes the caveat that it's an extraordinary thing, like out of the ordinary. Well, there's nothing out of the ordinary about gang violence. There's nothing out of the ordinary about the homicide rate reflecting the averages. So I don't automatically jump to it must be fake. But I do take note of events that seem to be hyped up because of their propaganda value, like Venezuelan gangs taking the jobs of American gangs in Aurora, Colorado, and the Hells Angels coming over from California to stop it. Like, that's all fake. It's all fake. It's hyped. Esteban says, I'm in Discord and have no idea how to use it. We'll show you how to use it. And once you get into Discord, we'll jump into chat and we'll walk you through it. Salty Siren says, I heard someone say, quote, I'm older than Google the other day, and my brain said that's bullshit, but they literally are older than Google, and so am I. It's so omnipresent, it's godlike. Yes. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Some people emerged from the analog world into the digital. They saw the transition, and they went through it, and others are just born on the other side of the screen. Like, I would look at Space Odyssey 2001 as the story of man entering the space age. And space is a metaphor for inner space, and the space program is about programming your inner space. And how are they programming your inner space? Through the movies. So 2001 Space Odyssey, the main symbol is the monolith, but ultimately what it represents is the merging of the movie screen with the real world. And they did it over a number of years with significant events that dragged everybody into the collective movie. Moon landing, JFK assassination, atomic bomb, 9/11, 2020. And they accomplished the merging of the two. And this is the symbol of Corona. The sun and the moon conjoined, the eclipse, the thing in the 2001 Space Odyssey has the monolith and the sun and moon above it. It represents this. What I would say is the establishment of an incontestable form of mind control over all mankind. And when you were, if you were born, let's say in the 50s or 60s or something, you probably weren't all the way in. I mean, you were mostly in, but you were definitely meat-verse dominant. And that has shifted. And I think now you're born in a matrix pod. Like right now, the immersion, the programming is so deep that anybody born today is born on the other side of the monolith with no chance of an opt-out. And that's why I say that nobody's unprogrammed. There's no savages here. This isn't Brave New World. Like, I mean, it is Brave New World, but there aren't any outliers. The only people who would be considered outliers are those who have objected, stepped out of it. And that's a recent phenomenon. No truther stepped out of the MSM programming box until the understanding of media fakery at the level of calling 9/11 a movie came out. Before that, it wasn't possible, and most truthers aren't even that far yet. If you're not willing to understand how much of our history has been augmented by movie magic, you're not there. If you're not willing to understand that the moon landing was accomplished through movie magic, not science. The ISS is movie magic. That's the last guardrail, and they're guarding it. They're really actually protecting this. That's why InfoWars is chasing second shooters and suggesting that the Secret Service were inside on some kind of hit job on Trump. Like, they're not allowed to go into how fake it all is, because this is a spell that they have cast on all mankind. It's like literally ubiquitous. But I don't think it was possible, or it could be possible, to step outside of it without being psyop aware. And that's why I bring up crisis actors and media fakery. Are you psyop aware? And truthers are, but they're not psy-war aware. They don't see the big picture. They see, oh, this was a psyop, that was one, but everything else is real. They're missing the big picture. As they say, they miss the forest for the trees, because they're chasing Alex Jones with a stinky red herring in his back pocket as he run laps around 3 or 4 safe fake trees to run around, and it prevents people from chopping down the forest of fakery, which is what we're doing. Armin Ree says, did you know Hulk Hogan had a wrestling team named New World Order, Tim? Oh, yes. In fact, I was pretty much aware of a lot of the predictive programming for 9/11 with the WWE, but then there's a lot more. Like, that is one platform that I haven't focused enough on, because it seems like all of their theatrics, all of its drama does in fact have predictive programming stuff attached to it. And the QAnoners, weirdly enough, are obsessed with wrestlers. But the Randy Savage, Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan interview about the Twin Towers coming down on 128, that interview was just one example of how Hulk Hogan has been connected to the big psyops from the very beginning. And him at the RNC was obviously part of this, because he even said, enough is enough when they shoot at our president, which is specifically the name of the Illuminati playing card for the sniper, where it has a Trump-like visage and a bullet whizzing by the head. Truth Hurts says James false. You know, I have come across James True's work. I'd like to talk to him about some stuff. I do recall we had some disagreement over Parkland, which was a hoax. Matt X says 33 years since the series was released on August 29th. Oh, okay, the Terminator series, right? They just released like Terminator Zero. And speaking of Terminator, because this is one of these characters, it's a James Cameron, and Terminator is a reference, I believe it connects pretty strongly to another of other symbols that we've got into, but I'm watching Napoleon right now with Joaquin Phoenix. And Napoleon has been described in some conspiracy theories as a personification for the sun, and that it's Apollyon. And Trump has been connected with Apollyon and Apollo. And of course, Revelation 9:11 talks about the destroyer in the abyss. Destroyer being an Oppenheimer reference, but you have destroyer or Apollyon or Abaddon. So these names all correlate. James Cameron's submersible, the Challenger, or the Deep Sea Challenger. So these things all correlate very strongly. But I think that the Terminator is another translation for Apollyon or Exterminator. So anyhow, I'm watching Joaquin Phoenix in this new Napoleon movie, and I'm just a few minutes into it. And a few things kind of stand out to me. Before the 2020 riots, Joaquin Phoenix was in Joker. Before that, he was doing these climate protests with Jane Fonda getting arrested. But before the riots, you had him in the Joker movie, and now he's in this Napoleon movie, which has some fascinating connections to right now. For example, one thing I've mentioned before, because it follows in the French Revolution, the Patriot Front is led by a guy named Thomas Rousseau. And Rousseau is a name that is associated with the French Revolution. So we have that connection, but it begins with the beheading of Marie Antoinette, which is what you see at the beginning of the Paris Olympics. You have the decapitated Marie Antoinette next to the band Gojira, which means Godzilla, nuke reference. So they're playing a French Revolution song next to this decapitated Marie Antoinette. So there's a theme here we're picking up here. And when you look at someone like Joaquin Phoenix, yeah, he's definitely one of these actors who carries a lot of weight in terms of the archetypes that he embodies. They do a lot of Jesus stuff with them, which is very consistent with this Joker role. And we've been talking about the correlation between Joker and Trump, and Batman and Joker and Trump. I'll get into it though. I'm going to watch the rest of the movie. Just a bunch of cannons and explosions right now, but there has to be some significance to it, and I think it might be this. So Joker's the face of the instigator of the revolution against the rich in the Joker movie. Kill the rich. He's the poor guy in the subway, shoots the rich guys. The subway represents the underclass, which is one of the things that we've talked about many times, the rising up of the underclass, which is why the right wing is being taught to be terrified of subways. But Joaquin Phoenix now as Napoleon. Well, Trump has been compared to Napoleon. So you see what I'm getting at here is that Joaquin Phoenix is the face of the revolution that becomes BLM, which is a communist thing. So it's the same, kill the rich. It's the Marxist class warfare. So I'm suggesting that him being the face of Napoleon could represent, this movie could be a foreshadowing of some kind of Patriot Front violence, perhaps. Some kind of, you see, I think it might, so there's like a parallel here. Okay, so we talked about Rosie O'Donnell getting her revenge on Trump, possibly. Let me see what the comments say, because there's 13, this has been viewed 3 million times. This is interesting. Tim Young says, what's wrong with her lips? It looks like she got finished drinking a gallon of red wine. We're going through some comments. Oh, here it is. Look, someone said, she's still mad about this gem.
Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
Okay, only Rosie O'Donnell, and everybody laughs, and Megyn Kelly kind of has to shut up for a minute. So that was a hit, and I think this could be her revenge, possibly. They're calling her Trump deranged. But nobody's agreeing with her. I smell a lawsuit, Donald Trump, very dangerous. It's like saying they're all playing moral equivalency here with the whole Sandy Hook thing. Tim, in reality, Donald Trump could sue Rosie O'Donnell for $1 billion, but there's one hitch to that. Donald Trump would have to prove he was hit by a bullet in the helix of his ear. That would shine a light on Donald Trump's lies. It'll never happen. Hey, Rosie, I think the Americans should file a Freedom of Information Act regarding treatments Donald Trump received at Butler Memorial Hospital that day by the physician. How about you? Okay, I like that. Freedom of Information Act. I went down and submitted one before last week, actually. The FBI sent me a letter because I want to get all of the reports that I made against the person I'm suing, and I want to see if there's any kind of indication that it's been acted upon, if there's an open investigation. So I'm learning the process of doing these FOIAs, and I'd be very interested in somebody going after this one. Dirk says, Tim, you're very similar to Alex the Donut Factory. I would love for you to do a show together. What's your opinion? I've never heard of Alex the Donut Factory, but yes, I'm interested in cross marketing, cross-pollinating ideas, collaborating. I think that's the best thing. That's the next step. Because what we want to do is enlarge the pool of minds that constitute this third branch of media outside of the main/alt box, because they're in the same box. Matt X says, the only half-decent acting I've seen off Rosie is Betty Rubble. Okay, let's move on. Speak No Evil. This is coming out later this month. There's a movie called Speak No Evil, and the main character, according to James McAvoy, is based on Andrew Tate. And he took all of his ideas of toxic masculinity from Andrew Tate. So yes, James McAvoy says he based Speak No Evil on Andrew Tate. So you have this character that represents toxic masculinity, and one of the things I've been talking about is this apparent controlled demolition on the right. A lot of these influencers falling, and right now the Tates are being investigated, possibly charged for human trafficking. They teach a course on being mean to girls, basically grooming. It's a grooming gang, actually. And what he's doing isn't entrepreneurial. It's not free market, because his whole school, they call it the PhD. I think it's Pimp, Hose. What's the D stand for? I'm going to look that up really quick. Pimp, Hose, Andrew Tate. And he's got his little tater tots that he reaches out to. And these are just the people he recruits into this idea of becoming an internet pimp. But what they're doing is they're taking the money of those that they hire to do the work. And they talk about in their lessons, it's the Pimp and Hose degree course, PhD. It teaches them how to essentially coerce, intimidate women into doing this work for free, and then it teaches you how to control them. And it talks about isolating them from their families, taking their phones, hiding passwords. So in reality, it's a form of extortion. It's theft. It's slavery. It's not like an authentic path to becoming rich. It's not like a success course. People defend Andrew Tate like, oh, he's done a lot of good. He's teaching men how to succeed. No, he's teaching people how to be parasites. And even if you don't agree or believe that any of these things are criminal because it's legal in certain countries at certain ages, the fact of it is, the methodology there is obviously psychopathic. So it's interesting that next month a movie is coming out about an Andrew Tate-like character, and it's based on him. The actor revealed a surprising link during an interview with Empire, saying he thought about his character being Tate, in the sense with the character's attitude focused on teaching men to be men again, but he put a more unassuming face on the character than Tate does in his own diatribes. But the undercurrent of that toxicity is there. Again, this is TMZ. James McAvoy speaks about his character based on Andrew Tate. Speak No Evil comes out September the 13th. Let's see what else here. He did put on muscle for the part. He played the character softer than the raging, hypermasculine male. He didn't want to hit the audience over the head with it. Of course, Tate's well known for his views on women, publicly labeling himself as a misogynist and dubbing himself the king of toxic masculinity. He's also accused of multiple alleged sexual offenses in Romania. Now, one more point here. He's a Poe, a parody of extremism. I believe he was put out there so they could take down this, quote, toxic masculinity, which is a construct. And they would create someone like this so that the public would say, yeah, this needs to go. This trait needs to go. This type of... And this is not new. You can look back, and there have been a number of people over the... Like, 8 years ago, there was somebody else in the manosphere promoting the same stuff. So there's nothing new about this. But I think this looks like one of these controlled takedowns. And if you remember, it all started when he was bragging about his 33 Bugattis while eating pizza. And so I'm looking at this as evidence that Andrew Tate, who is the son of a CIA agent and master chess player, who was told that everything is fake, I'm pretty sure what we're looking at here is a metascript actor. Nothing about this is organic. And when you look closely, it's like, well, he does look like Cypher, and he's always talking about the Matrix, and he has this uncanny resemblance to Anton LaVey, the Satanist. So it looks like this is an evil villain archetype that they created for the purpose of taking down toxic masculinity, in the same way that Elon Musk has opened the floodgates to memes that are considered hateful and offensive, so the public will agree, hey, we need to do some censorship. And they are agreeing. Look at Brazil cutting X off of, just cutting it off. They're blocking it. So we're looking at, again, a construct. Lean Dion says, the Tate brothers are cringe, overlords, and degenerates. Well, I've been observing this and finding it to be kind of funny how so many people are jumping in and defending him and them and just taking his side. And they're always saying, oh, he does so much good for the community. He teaches these young men. And I'm looking at some of the courses, and no, he's essentially running a course on how to be a psychopathic control freak, and it's not valuable information, to be quite honest. Lean Dion says, Tate got his start on UK Big Brother show. Yeah, Big Brother, that's kind of a clue. Commenter says, Tim Osman is a construct. Deprogrammed Truther says, perfect timing for the movie that was probably started 2 years ago to come out now. See, that's what I'm talking about when I say concurrent programming. Because this isn't predictive programming, because the movie comes out after. But just as Tate goes to trial, the movie's coming out. Perfect timing. I was talking about that movie, A Man in Fool, which is based on Trump. This is what's crazy about it. It's a Tom Wolfe novel from like 30 years ago, before Trump was the way he is now. But it was repurposed by Netflix in the last couple of years, and when they created this A Man in Fool, the movie on it, to be based on Trump. And when you watch it, it gets into some nuance that they couldn't have known. For example, they have a character that represents Barron, and they show the relationship between Barron and Melania. And when you really get into it, it's kind of grotesque, because they make it seem like Trump's new wife is Ivanka. Like, his wife is literally based on Ivanka. It's pretty funny what they did. It's a savage hit piece. And the Obama character is this Chicago mayor who engineers the Trump guy's downfall. But my point is that many of the nuances in A Man in Fool had perfectly aligned with what was happening in the news at the same time. So it had this Charlie Coker on trial, just as Trump's on trial. It was just perfect. It perfectly aligned. Just like Waco, American Apocalypse, gets released on Netflix just as Trump launches his campaign in Waco. When they created that documentary, Waco, American Apocalypse, did they know that Trump was going to kick off his campaign on that day in Waco, which is ill-advised. It's the worst place that you would start a campaign if you didn't want to be deliberately associated with ground zero for domestic violent terrorism from white nationalists. All of that's obviously scripted. January 6/16, Fox News being sued by $1.6 billion by Dominion over the election stuff. Waco raided over 1.6 million rounds. The 1.6 code was very prominent at that time. But the timing of these releases tell you everything. What they do is they entrain the public to the news through the entertainment. This is not synchronicity. We're watching this process unfold. So we're watching in advance, in full knowledge, that Andrew Tate is a construct and his scheduled takedown is September 2024. Just as the movie comes out, Speak No Evil. And when you look at the iconography, look at the movie poster, you have half dark, half light. Tate's always showing a chessboard, the black versus white, and the finger over the lips is an occult. That's a sign that you see many of the celebrities do. They're all sworn to secrecy. They're all in the club. There's no way he's not in the club. But just because it's fake doesn't mean that his course isn't real. Okay, let's continue. Catching up on your comments. We have let me see how many people are here. We have 23 on Twitter, half a dozen in DLive, 6 on the backup, 80 in the main, and about 20 people on Odyssey, and I think about 50 on the audio streams. I want to say thanks for all of your participation and comments, and also thank you for enabling this. As we kick off the next month, it's the Patreon, it's IPS supporters that keep this going, that fund everything we do here. And what we're doing is we are branching off. We're quarantining. And this is ground zero for something that doesn't have a ceiling. How many people do you think can appreciate mass media and the mass mediation process as such from a skeptical perspective? How many people who would be doing so were it not for gatekeepers and guardrailers? Do you think there are? I think the number is bigger than what I generally state in my estimates. My idea here is to aggregate like 10,000. 10,000 would be enough to do what needs to be done, which is to create a permanent platform outside of the mainstream box. That's why I call it a parallel media. Elephant Tusk says, ever analyze Jim Carrey's The Number 23? Yeah, it was the Truman Show that had me first look into Jim Carrey and the synchronicities that I thought that at the time I was like, this is all some kind of Easter eggs at first. I thought these are Easter eggs by people who want to plant stuff there for nerds, for film critics, or film reviewers, people who go deep in the weeds. But I remember noticing that Jim Carrey in The Truman Show has this awakening after the dog star falls. And I happened to be reading The Cosmic Trigger. And The Cosmic Trigger is by Robert Anton Wilson. It's about Sirius, the dog star, which he calls the Cosmic Trigger. And he says this will trigger an awakening, a synthesis between your higher self and your waking consciousness, and that you can tap into your intuition, that we're all going to go through some collective awakening, courtesy of the dog star, the star of initiation. So I'm reading Cosmic Trigger, Final Secret of the Illuminati. I have the book with me, and I go see The Truman Show. And when I watched The Truman Show, I walked out of it thinking there's no way that this content is meant for the ticket buyers. It's going over their heads. But I recognize then that Jim Carrey is playing a deeper role here. He's the fool in The Truman Show. The fool at the beginning of the fool's journey of awakening and overcoming the construct, the simulation. But then after that, I watched his other movies, and I noted there's a continuity here, because the number 23 continues to allude to the dog star, to Sirius. I think he's a dog catcher in that one even. But the number 23, interestingly enough, is based on the cosmic trigger. Robert Anton Wilson isn't given overt credit for some weird reason, and he died about a week before the number 23 came out. But the number 23 is obviously based on the cosmic trigger, where it's an account of Robert Anton Wilson having endless synchronicities with the number 23. And it leads him to the dog star. So in the number 23, at the end of it, Jim Carrey's trying to figure out who wrote this book, the number 23. And what he does is he orders 23 packages to go to this address, and he catches the guy at the post office. And the guy looks just like Robert Anton Wilson. And he says, "What does the number 23 mean?" And before he can say, the character cuts his own throat. So he doesn't reveal it. And to me, that suggests something, because the subtitle of the cosmic trigger is Final Secret of the Illuminati. And the penal code for telling a secret, revealing the secrets, is the throat slashing. It's the hand across the neck. So I was thinking that kind of alludes to that the final secret is something that is protected by blood oaths. But here's the cover art. Cosmic Trigger, Final Secret of the Illuminati. Robert Anton Wilson. Dirk says, "Tim, I like that you watch the movies to get truth from the Illuminati. I do have some faves to recommend." Yeah, I have a few. Fly Me to the Moon is a terrible rom-com, but mandatory watching if you're trying to understand how they're guard railing the fake moon landing. Matt X says it's decent, very underrated. Violet Pangon says Jim Carrey is Walter Sparrow, a mild-mannered dog catcher who has a nice family and a dull life. Yeah, dog catcher. And throughout the movie, you see a lot of stuff like black and white tiles. The color pink shows up quite a bit. And there's this obsession he has with this woman. And I think that also... I have to rewatch it now because I only watched it once. And I watched the stuff before I knew that this had some broader implications. I mean, at the time, I thought these were just Easter eggs. But now I see, no, it's part of a hidden language and a subtext and a level of communication that is consistent in all of these mainstream movies. Okay, Mango Penguin says, Contagion was released on September 9th, 2011. Interesting. Now, there's a couple of other movies that Jim Carrey and references that go down this way that connect to Sirius, and I'll probably do a deep dive on it. But he certainly does embody the archetype of the fool, because he's the comedian, the slapstick comedy and all that stuff. But the fool in Symbolism is someone like, it's kind of like it's someone who recognizes that they don't know it all, and that the false assumption they knew it all is what kept them in the state of being a fool. And so it's kind of a paradox, because in the Truman Show, in order for him to become a true man, because he was a false man, he had to go with his intuition and disbelieve everyone around him. He had to essentially rebel in many ways, but it required him to become self-aware and to cease to allow others to filter his experiences for him. Okay, let's continue through my minds.com/Infinite Plane Society. We were talking about how Andrew Tate is some kind of a character, a world stage personage, and he's going to be brought down. Okay, now this is interesting. This just happened over this weekend. This is Labor Day weekend. Tragic. The Church of the Immaculate Conception in France was destroyed in a massive fire on Sunday. So Immaculate Conception, Labor Day weekend. So here we are in Virgo. It's a Labor Day weekend, and we have a conflagration taking down Immaculate Conception. And this reminded me of 2019. You had the burning of a boat called the Conception. The sinking of MV Conception, September 2nd, 2019. A 75-foot dive boat caught fire off Santa Cruz. Says 33 passengers asleep below the decks when the fire broke out at 3 a.m. So I remember talking about this because this was 2019, Labor Day weekend, after a 33-year-old was found dead at the Burning Man, which is the 33rd Burning Man. And then we see this boat called Conception burns, Labor Day weekend. And now we have this cathedral burning Labor Day weekend. What's the connection here? I would imagine it has something to do with architecture and how these cathedrals are all just loaded with, like Notre Dame, for example. There has to be some deeper meaning here, and I think it might have to do with the goddess Virgo. I mean, think about it. Immaculate Conception. Virgo, Virgin Mary. Immaculate Conception, the boat burning, the 33 obvious Christ connections, and then you have this burning cathedral. And if you look at cathedrals, the architecture often has a reference to the goddess built into it, like the archways, all of this stuff. Like, the steeple is a reference to the god, but you'll see goddess symbolism encoded in the architecture of these cathedrals. So I'm thinking here that this is some kind of Virgo fire immolation ritual, both the cathedral burning and the boat. What do you think? JC says, just to let you know, dark matter on TuneIn has stopped working. I'll take a look at that. Oh, you know what it could be? I see. My audio encoder just crashed. Thanks for letting me know. So right now I just hit refresh and it should be back on in just a second. Okay, so if you're listening on TuneIn, Radio King, Radio Net, Paranormal Radio, where we were number 8 of 13, top paranormal of 2023, you're back on. Dirty Pox says, what are your thoughts on the writings of Vera Marie Alder? I have not read this author. Let me go ahead and pull up some information here. English portrait painter and mystic, wrote several books and pamphlets on self-help. I'll take a look. There's a few characters I really want to dig into. I think that are relevant to our conversations today. Another artist and mystic is Osmond Spare. He is the progenitor of sigil magic. And we talk about symbols and how these things bypass your conscious awareness and they just sort of embed. They are planting post-hypnotic suggestions. But his theory, when it came to accessing the subconscious and doing magic, is that you had to conduct sleight of mind. You had to bypass the ego, your awareness, and allow this coded message or mantra or sigil to be somehow inserted. And there were different methods of doing so. One of them was writing out one statement of intent and then converting that into a symbol that you can't read, but the theory here is that your subconscious mind will always retain a memory of what its intent is behind it. So there's this kind of idea of symbols being conduits for accessing magic. And he's one of those characters who's also mentioned quite a lot because of his theories work their way into some more modern systems of magic like chaos magic. And then he did these drawings, which were, he called them automatic drawings, similar to channeling. And his artwork is rather intriguing. And his work features prominently in a lot of the Ordo Templar Orientis' work after Kenneth Grant took over. So here's some examples of his automatic drawings. But sure, if you want to suggest anyone for me to research, I'll be happy to do so. Okay, yes, it's working now. Thank you, JC, for letting me know. Generally, that audio encoder works just fine. And we do have more listeners on the audio streams in the aggregate, more new listeners, more random stopping in than we do on video. And I have plans to expand it. And I want to invite more. I want to put some commercials in there and try to get more to join in on these chats. Okay, so yesterday we talked about this motorcycle rally in Durango. And I'm still looking on Twitter. And there are all kinds of truthers out there imagining that there's a war going on between Venezuelan gang members and Hell's Angels. And the Hell's Angels are on Team Trump, Team MAGA. It's exactly a repeat of the QAnon fantasies about this underground war. And I remember so many nonners would hit me up and they'd say, yeah, did you hear about the 5,000 troops from China that were coming to America through a tunnel from Canada, but they were killed by bunker bombs? Meanwhile, the mole children are being liberated by the white hats. I'm like, that's all in your head. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, dude. This is Jurassic.
Hey, what's up, Jurassic?
You know what? I was not going to call in, but I saw something that Jessica wrote. Did you even mention that when you were talking about the Rosie O'Donnell story?
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking about. Okay, I was thinking about Rosie O'Donnell because Trump mentioned her. What's the skinny on Rosie O'Donnell?
Well, I mean, I'll get into that, but did you notice that what Jessica put in the that she wrote the word Hinckley because it sounds like hinky.
Oh crap. Okay. I was gonna say that the John Hinckley assassination was hinky, so that's funny. You're right about that.
Yes, and she's talking about stupid Trump, right? So that connects to an assassination with Hinckley, right?
She's already connected to Trump, talking about Trump and the head wound, and then brings up a word that references the shooting of Reagan, which is connected to the Trump shooting in many ways we've talked about. So yeah, that's definitely a hit.
Yeah, it's completely perfect because, you know, of course, we all mentioned it that he's born on JFK's birthday.
Oh yeah, John Hinckley was born on JFK's birthday. He did the shooting. He shot James Brady, who died 33 years later on 8/4 of the head wound. And he was inspired by Robert De Niro's character, Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, which is the basis for Joker, where De Niro's character gets shot in the head on live TV. Like, this is a total alignment here. Rosie O'Donnell commenting and calling it hinky. Yeah, that's 100%.
Yeah, that's why I had to call in because I saw that you skipped over. You must have thought she just wrote the word hinky and you just passed over it. And
yeah,
that's why I brought it up.
I'm glad you did because I did. I was gonna mention John Hinckley shooting being hinky, and it eluded me what you were saying here. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you for calling because that is a nice hit there.
Yeah, all right. Oh, just one last thing. And also, don't forget Rosie O'Donnell having the Dawn in it, but the fact that Rose is like raising from the dead, and also the creature looks like Elvis's mom. If you go back and look in the old pictures of them too.
Ooh, okay. Dawn,
all right.
Dawn Rose. That's interesting. Okay, yeah. Thanks for the call.
All right, bye-bye.
Excellent call. And yeah, Gladys Presley looks exactly like Rosie O'Donnell. That is definitely very close there. What is going on? I have a voicemail. Let me go ahead and play this. I didn't realize I had one. It's generally just posterior dials. Okay, I think he fell asleep. Yeah, that's sleep apnea. All right. Anyway, appreciate the attempted voicemail. Yeah, great connection there with the Rosie O'Donnell, Donald Rose, mentioning the name Hinckley, basically, with Hinky, talking about the head wound. And then she got... Now, we're talking about predictive programming and how they insert memes. And like I was just talking about sigils and sigil magic. Well, sigils also include verbal sigils, spells, words that can be, or sentences that can be compressed and then turned into in the same way that you would make the written sigil. So in other words, these words have meaning. They are embedding. They are connecting with other things. They're weaving spells, like a web in the back of your mind that they can call back on later. This is MK Ultra, post-hypnotic suggestions. That's what we're seeing. Now, the fact that she comes out and says this with all these occult connections, subliminal or subtextual connections, it matters because this has been viewed and listened to millions and millions of times. 3 million times on this one TikTok, this one Twitter account. It probably has just as many on the TikTok he stole it from, not to mention her own accounts. So this got proliferated. Donald, Rosie O'Donnell, you got the Rose, Donald, and of course, Hinckley. Mango Penguin says we've entered the Twilight Zone. We were born in the Twilight Zone. We were never not in it. That's the big reveal. The big reveal is that the New World Order isn't coming. The New World Order religion isn't something to fear for the future. We're already in this thing, and some of us have opted out. By the way, if you want to leave voicemails, I will play them online. It's 505-510-4226 if you miss us when we're live. Let me catch up on some notes here. This might just be a coincidence, but Cardi B was posing pregnant in front of a graffiti-covered wall, and it has the word pedo on the back. It's just spray painted behind her. And she noticed it, and she said, "We just picked a random street because the paparazzi was hounding us. This was going to be my original picture. It got leaked. We didn't have time to go over the detail. I'm always with this, but I'm not using my maternity shoot to be funny. Are you dumb?" And someone said to her, "It's a little weird to have a term like that in the background for a maternity shoot." Now that is kind of strange, yes. Strange. I don't know what it means. Cardi B may not be aware of it, but I don't know. I don't think there are any coincidences on the world stage. We've been talking about Tucker Carlson taking xenophobia to new heights, now promoting the idea that extraterrestrials are demons, and that's being spread around. It's practically a standard belief now on the far right. All right, I'm going to have to answer some of my tweets. I have a lot of interesting people on my Twitter feed, and I haven't been able to respond to all of them. So I'm likely going to start doing videos where I respond to tweets as I do to comments. So if you're a member, you'll be seeing more of those. I've been doing these tweets, but I haven't gotten any attention from Andrew Tate. I've been mashing him up with Epstein, and I've been referring to the top G as top groomer. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll get some of those, and I always appreciate retweets. So we've covered, I think, everything we needed to cover for tonight. I'm going to continue tomorrow, but this narrative of aliens is also being brought up by CNN. They're saying that we have stuff, technology from the aliens, but they're in love with aliens. And then in the background, the ISS, Calypso, the Starliner, is dealing with some kind of strange noises in space. So right now on the ISS, they're claiming that they're having some kind of noises, strange sounds from the Boeing Starliner. NASA astronauts stuck in space report strange noises. Stranded astronaut contacts Houston to report strange noise. Creepy sonar-like sound. Haunting. Not sure what this means, but obviously it means something. I think we're building something here. I think we're building up to something here. Something having to do with a Challenger-like incident. And I think last year the Titan implosion was connected to this. Because think about it. And this ties into James Cameron. James Cameron figures prominently. He's huge in meta scripting. He's Kubrick level. The fact that he was at the Titanic in this thing called the Challenger on the day of 9/11 is a huge clue here, because the Titan submersible was going down to the Titanic when it imploded. And so the Challenger exploded. The Titan submersible imploded. So there's some kind of a relationship here too between James Cameron filming Ghosts in the Abyss and his movie The Abyss, and then you have his movie The Alien, the whole idea of outer space and the ocean being connected. So outer space, as above, so below, which is sort of a reoccurring theme here. Mango says, is there really a hole in the ozone? I don't believe anything without evidence, and I don't accept the screen itself as just evidence in and of itself. And I tend to find a lot of the stuff questionable. Like space environmentalism is a new field that we have to watch out for. It's the next thing. But they'll show you pictures to tug at your heartstrings of polar bears on a chunk of ice floating as though you did that because you didn't recycle. And it's like, these polar bears are excellent swimmers. Dirk says, Tim, I find it interesting you knew Jordan Maxwell. You may have many similarities to Alex of the Donut Factory. I'll take a look. And yeah, Jordan Maxwell was the first person that I heard about the symbolism of Saturn from. And it happened to connect with me because I was at this courthouse, and they have the magic square of Saturn on a mural. And I start noticing the architecture and the symbolism there. It all seemed to have these themes, but the square of Saturn was one of the ones that that piqued my interest. So I contacted Jordan Maxwell, and we had a long talk. And then later, when I got with Dark Matter, I made him a regular guest. Dirty Pox says, Manly P. Hall wrote Lords of Dawn, which has never been elaborated upon. I'll take a look. Manly P. Hall's interesting. One of the foremost Masonic historians. And did he write Secret Destiny of Secret Teachings of All Ages, but Secret Destiny of America? Yes. Yes, this is the one. Secret Destiny of America. Let's see if I can pull up some work by Manly P. Hall. Because one of the things you find is this concept of the great work of ages. The idea that there's some bigger destiny for America, that the American eagle is a phoenix. And when you look at the symbolism inherent in like the founding in 1776, the dollar bill, the pyramid with the 1776, in the Masonic context, 1776 AL is the year of Nimrod beginning the building of the Tower of Babel. So there's a story, a meta-scripted storyline that has connected America to Babylon, and the space program ultimately represents the culmination of this Tower of Babel concept or story that we're all living through. We talk about this quite a lot, but it is one of the, I would say, one of the more dominant biblical stories in this syncretic meta-scripted narrative. Another one of the major biblical stories, of course, is the return of Noah's flood. And Noah is now the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Take a look at their symbolism. They're always telling you, oh, our satellite's telling us there's going to be a flood. There's going to be an arc storm. Better get inside of our... And they have these arcs. I mean, that's like these ships. Like, it symbolizes the ark. But the symbol here for Noah is the dove. Then you look at the biblical Noah, and his symbol is the dove and the ark. And you'll often see in the imagery the angel up above warning him about the flood. So the satellite that Noah uses to warn us of the flood corresponds to the angel. The dove Noah is essentially telling us what the scientists of the day are telling us, that there's going to be a flood if we don't curb our wickedness. So they use these old stories. This is why I call it syncretic storytelling, and they merge them with the modern paradigm. But even this is still bifurcated because the left wing embraces this. They listen to Noah, and they're worried that if the wicked on the right wing don't curb their carbon footprints, Gaia's going to flood us. And they think that's an acceptable belief. They don't think it's a myth. But then they read about Noah's Ark, and the right-wingers like WorldNet Daily, they're always publishing stories. I think we just found the real Noah's Ark. They have these theme parks built around the Noah's Ark because they don't believe in climate change. They still believe in the traditional version. So they have this option where you can choose idealized past, traditional religion, traditional concepts of sin, or you can embrace progressive utopianism and the new concepts of sin, carbon footprint, bring your original sin, and yet they're compatible. You can coexist. You know that bumper sticker, coexist, with all the religions on them? Well, one of the religions that isn't mentioned there is Nasatology. And Noah is part of the body of myths that make up Nasatology, which is the default religion. That's why I say there are no authentic atheists. You can't be an atheist if you accept these modern God constructs. Lean Dion says, reportedly, the alleged Noah's Ark site flooded recently. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, do you think the Trump versus Rosie thing is just a personification of Jesuits versus the Rosicrucian orders? Interesting. Not quite sure, but I'll look into it. The name Rose is obviously incredibly significant. Rosicrucian, Rose Cross. You have the goddess pairing in all these rituals that we often talk about. Okay, we're just about out of time. But I think you might be onto something. I think that the caller, Garrow, is definitely onto something with Rosie O'Donnell and the significance of her using the word hinky. And I'm going to look up hinky really quick to see if it's even a word. Okay. It means dishonest or suspect.
Hinky.
So John Hinckley, that name itself, may even reference this. John Hinckley easily could reference this. These names are significant for a lot of reasons. Even like Lee Harvey Oswald. I'm pretty sure that there's some... That's right, Oz. And James Shelby Downward broke this down. There were some Wizard of Oz subtext built into that entire story. And the ruby slippers taking down the Wizard of Oz. Then you got Jack Ruby shooting Oswald. So there's some significance to the names. But yeah, definitely hinky. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. I have to catch up on archives, but I've been busy formatting photos for the tabloid Insider #1, which is going to be sent to the printers tomorrow morning. And we should have the physical copies here in the office within the week. And they will ship out on the 9th. So again, if you want to get a copy of the IPS Insider, I'll put a link below. I'm ordering 30. I'm setting aside 5 to list on eBay so they can be sold to people internationally. I can't sell them internationally on my main site. I have a much better shipping arrangement with eBay. So there's the link. Thank you for joining. This is Symbia's Auto Hoaxology.
Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, auto hoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind age. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading auto hoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me. Cause I've been reading art of hoaxology. Nothing can bother me. Art of hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading out of hoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receiver. Standing on the sword of truth, I stab the backs of deceiver, demanding burdens further proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been saved by reading art of hoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me. Cause I've been reading art of hoaxology. Nothing can bother me. Art of hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading art of hoaxology. Suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current